I'm going to call this talk Immigration Good News, Bad News. And we'll see why I call it that as we go. There are some headlines and some factoids I want to go through. A few short videos towards the end. A lot of it's going to be news that we're not going to like, but because I'm an optimist, I'm going to give my positive spin on it, why I see some positives in what can be bad news. And we're going to end this off with a smile, I think. So let's get started. This right here, this first article, was from the Financial Times. And it's titled, U.S. Companies Hit by Anti-Indian Racism as Donald Trump Restricts Foreign Worker Visas. They're saying there's some increase in rhetoric against South Asians, followed the White House overhaul of H-1B program. Okay. And there's some people commenting on some stuff online, but what I wanted to get to was this here, starting from here. Some of America's most high-profile executives have benefited from the H-1B visa program and are of Indian origin, including Google's Sundar Pichai, Microsoft's Satya Nadella, but that's not stopped the flood of anti-Indian rhetoric. Now, that sentence is weird to me. That has not stopped the flood of anti-Indian rhetoric. Why would it stop it? That's the reason for it. The CEO of IBM, Google, Microsoft, and this article points out, I believe, Federal Express as all being Asian Indian. Those are just some I can name off the top of my head. And as it says here, right-wing, I don't think it's just a right-wing thing, guys. Right-wing commentators have amplified accusations that FedEx chief Raj Subramaniam pictured laid off white American workers and replaced them with Indian people. Accusations that FedEx chief Raj Subramaniam has been laying off white American workers and replacing them with Indian workers, which the company denies, have been amplified by right-wing commentators, including Andrew Torba, founder of social media platform Gab. They go on to say, for more than 50 years, FedEx has fostered a merit-based culture that creates opportunity for everyone, the company said. We take great pride that this has resulted in a workforce that represents the diversity of the more than 220 countries and territories we serve. And this is interesting to me, where they say in September, the government launched a program called Project Firewall to investigate allegations of widespread H-1B visa fraud, because anonymous social media accounts posted the names and contact information of current and former employees at Walmart, Verizon, Dish Network, and other companies, claiming they were illegally selling jobs to Indian nationals and taking kickbacks. Wouldn't you know it, Verizon declined to comment. So has Walmart, so did Dish Network. They all didn't respond for a request for comment. Indian green card managers must be kicked out of the country, said one post featuring screenshots of a Walmart recruiter's LinkedIn page. I bet you that LinkedIn page, I haven't looked at it. They didn't give a link to it, but I bet you it included a bunch of faces of people who are Asian Indian. And that's about as far as I want to go on this. But again, the article is about this Raj Subramaniam, and it says he's pictured here. Let's show his picture. There he is. It says, I'm a believer in legal immigration. Raj Subramaniam. Got the gray feather then just nicely, Grecian formula or touch of gray by Just for Men in there. And he's saying, his company is saying it's not true that they replace white workers with H-1B folks. But wouldn't you know it, let's look at this link here. This what has people up in arms. FedEx wins $2.2 billion federal contract, then hires hundreds of H-1B workers while laying off Americans. Now, they can deny it all they want. But the bottom line is American taxpayers do not want their money. They don't want taxpayer dollars going to a company that has H-1B people at all at this point. They don't want it at all. So they're saying it's not true. They can argue the numbers all they want, but the bottom line is Americans don't want their tax dollars going to a company that really hires any H-1Bs at this point, especially when they're getting rid of heritage American folks. What's next? This link here was interesting to me. It says Indian media just blew up the student visa scam. Now everything changes. I read this so you don't have to. The crux of the story is right here. A recent piece from the Times of India. So it's an India publication by Indians, for Indians. For us, by us. Boo-boo for Indians. But anyway, a new Times of India just admitted the ugly truth out loud. For many Indian families, an American student visa has zero to do with education. They're not coming here for the education. It's quietly understood that the student stuff, they call it the student stuff, is a progression that starts with admission and a visa and moves through internships and graduation and ends up with work authorization long enough to recover their costs and secure a foothold in the U.S. job market. The degree isn't the reason, it's just their foot in the door. So they get here, they don't leave, and they stay. And you really don't need to go through all that. You get here on land, you have a baby, that baby becomes an anchor child. You can stay here forever because of the way that we're treating the 14th Amendment, calling it birthright citizenship. Perhaps we'll get some of that, we'll right that ship sometime during Trump's administration. He's pointed out that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are really the amendments for slaves. They were part of the Civil War amendments. And they're not designed just for anybody that comes over here and happens to have a baby on our land. No other nation really does that, but we're doing it because we're stupid in some ways. Here's something. Let's take a listen.
State Department officials say they have revoked more than 100,000 visas since President Trump took office last year. The leading causes for the revocations were overstays, driving under the influence, assault, and theft. A State Department spokesman says the revocations mark a 150% increase from 2024.
So that is good news. They're revoking more visas because people are breaking laws and they're being dangerous, and it's been an increase since the Biden administration of more than 150%. That falls in the good news category. But this right here, let's take a listen.
Tech companies, but also there are many tech companies who are also reprehensible in the process because a lot of them are laden with, very Indian heavy management. And, I hate to put it this way, but as an Indian American, I can say this, that essentially there's certain things that I noticed in India was that fraud is normalized there, like bribery is normalized. So there is sort of an honor among thieves situation going on in some of these tech companies where, you have an Indian manager and he says, okay, I know you're not necessarily a fully credentialed applicant, but I'm going to get you into Amazon or whatever company. But every month, out of your $12,000 salary, please give me a cut of $4,000.
That's a big chunk.
That is a big chunk.
Fraud is normalized in India. I wonder how many people know that it's a cultural thing. Of course, to say that would be considered to be racist. Just like saying it about Somalis. There's something about the culture that fraud is normalized, at least when they get here. Is it that way just because they're here now, or is that part of their culture? Either way, Americans are waking up and they don't like what they see. The lady speaking there, her name is Mahvash Siddiqui. She's a U.S. Foreign Service officer. So this is her ballywick. She knows about this. And I listened to that entire podcast shortly after it came out in November of 2025. And I'm going to leave a link to that in the notes of this video so you can check it out yourself if you'd like to. But it was very informative. And as you can see, this entire podcast is called Parsing Immigration Policy. That's the name of the podcast. Parsing Immigration Policy from the Center for Immigration Studies. What's next? Good news, bad news. U.S. freezes all visa processing for 75 countries, including Somalia, Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, Brazil, Nigeria, Thailand, among other nations. It doesn't include India, but 75, that's good. Any reduction, I think Americans are going to appreciate. It's a step in the right direction. And we're about to end this with two of my favorite videos. Again, the information we're going to hear is going to sound negative, but I'm going to button this up at the end and explain why I think there's a positive associated with this. So let's listen to and watch these two young ladies.
We seriously need to eliminate the H-1B visa program altogether. So this is a map of H-1B employers throughout the United States, and it seems as though they have literally conquered the entire state of Texas. Why is this happening? Well, you have multiple immigration lawyers, each approving tens of thousands of H-1B applications. Take Chand Parvathani, for example, who himself has processed over 20,000 H-1B applications. And where are these people working? Well, they're running tech companies, trucking companies, body shops out of residential properties, single-family homes, all registered to dozens of H-1B holders. And guess what? Each of these companies are receiving government funding too. Yes, yet another group of foreigners that come here with the intent of stealing your taxpayer dollars and running a fraud scheme in their backyard. And if all that wasn't enough, the government helps them buy up our homes too. Yes, there are programs that help H-1B holders get mortgages with little to no lines of credit here in the US. They were even receiving lower interest rates and government-backed FHA loans until just May of last year.
They also have an advantage in that the employers who employ them don't have to pay certain taxes, like certain payroll taxes or certain Social Security taxes. Therefore, the candidate can have a smaller salary, or the employer can pay them a smaller salary, but the candidate has a greater take-home pay because fewer taxes are being taken out. That's a disadvantage that Americans have. And it gives a leg up for the employer to hire that person over an American because it just costs them less.
When hardworking American citizens are struggling to buy homes due to the cost of living, sky-high interest rates, and inflation, foreigners here on temporary visas should not be allowed to purchase homes here in the U.S., let alone receive extra handouts to do so. And furthermore, we shouldn't continue a visa program that has largely been used to defraud our government, steal our tax dollars, steal our jobs, steal our homes, and increase the cost of practically everything for the rest of us.
Okay, so that was that young lady. Let's look at one more, and I'm going to explain why, even though what they're saying is negative, why it's potentially positive. Take a look.
This is Chand Parvathani. He's an immigration lawyer here in Dallas,
She mentioned the same name as the previous guy.
Texas, and as of 2024 has approved over 400,000 H-1B visa applicants, and as of 2025 has approved over 700,000 H-1B applicants in Texas. Now you're probably asking yourself, where do these people work? Do they work at places like this? Cute little 4-bedroom, 3-bath houses that
That's gangster. She put the full address there.
700,000 H-1B applicants in Texas. Now you're probably asking yourself, where do these people work? Do they work at places like this?
She got the address there. She can drive there.
Cute little 4-bedroom, 3-bath houses that are registered to 66 H-1B applicants? They apparently run a tech company out of this house. This isn't just happening in Irving. It's happening in Irving, Plano, Las Colinas, Frisco, McKinney, Prosper, and more. Because North Texas has been completely overrun and overtaken by both Muslims and Indians.
All right, I'm going to explain why I thought there's some positives there. The last lady, the blonde lady, I'd seen her before, and the reason why I didn't share her before is because, as you can see, she mentioned a lot of cities that are all about the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I didn't want to talk about just one area of the U.S. But because I'm seeing her again, I'm bringing her up this time, especially on the back of the other young lady that focused on Texas as a whole. Well, she talked about the whole nation, but focused on Texas being taken over as a whole. Here's why I think, even though what they're saying is negative, there's some positives associated with it. When I first got started in IT, I worked at IBM coming out of college. Everybody on my team was male, white and black men. There were some sister teams, Lotus Notes. I believe there might have been a gal or two on that team. There was another team that was AIX, IBM's flavor of Unix. I know there was at least one Far Eastern Asian lady on that team that I recall. But that's pretty much it. It was a male-dominated industry, mostly black and white men, mostly white men, and a few blacks. But it was probably close to half and half on the team that I was on for systems engineers there at Research Triangle Park and IBM. Now, I bring that up to say this: that the reason why women didn't want to do what we were doing is because it could get dirty. You're lifting up raised floors. You're in cold environments. It's 24/7. I didn't know that at the time, but it was 24/7 type of support environment, as IT is today. Which is why I got out of IT for a bit and went into the staffing industry to have more control of my evenings and weekends. But yeah, it can be dirty opening up servers, desktops, getting underneath people's desks is dusty and dirty. Opening up servers and replacing memory and motherboards and hard drives, that can get kind of dirty and it's heavy, and racking that stuff can be heavy, and I can understand why women aren't involved in that. But where they were involved was in sales. They were in sales, technical sales, and particularly in staffing as account execs and recruiters, because it worked for them. They have control of the evenings and weekends. You can make a very good income, at least back then you could. And it's just pretty much phone calls and email and going to meetings and some travel. Talking with employers, talking with candidates, looking over resumes. That's what it was. And many of the women in staffing look like these gals. For all I know, these gals they've been displaced by Asian Indians. A lot of the calls I get today are from Asian Indian sounding names. Not so much white women. It's very rare, it seems, that a white person at all, much less a white woman, is reaching out to me in the staffing industry. It happens, but it's not as dominant as it used to be. For all I know, again, these ladies could have been displaced, or they could have had a brother or a husband or a boyfriend or a cousin or an uncle or a nephew watching them get displaced in universities and in jobs in trucking and science, technology, engineering, and math, and they're not having it. They're not having it anymore. You can see the passion and the energy. That's the positive that I see. You got the white sisters involved in this. They're not having it. You're not going to put this toothpaste back in a tube. And when they list and addresses like that, they're putting these folks on notice that, hey, don't be surprised if a James O'Keefe or a Nick Shirley or a Mike Wallace of 60 Minutes type is going to show up and start asking questions, because they know the fraud that's involved. As I said, if you go and look at that podcast that I had listed, where the guest being interviewed is that lady named Mahvash Siddiqui. She said fraud is normalized. And we know it's fraudulent. When you have entry-level positions being open to people who are on visas, and we say that it's because of the best and brightest, stop it. if it's entry level, anyone can fill the job. You don't need to go overseas. You don't need to outsource for that type of talent. And we're doing it over and over again. Meanwhile, you have heritage Americans struggling to meet their food bill for the month. A record number of automobiles being repossessed. People having a hard time finding a house that they can afford, that they would like in a safe neighborhood. So as long as affordability is a problem, which might not be the ultimate issue this coming midterm election, it could be, but it might not be. Nevertheless, people, this is not the American way. And we're 250 years as a nation. People are going to start reflecting, hey, are we better in year 250 than we were in year 1? Are we better in year 250 than we were at year 200 during the bicentennial? There are going to be comparisons made. So that's why I saw some positives. You got the spirit of these young gals involved, and they're not quite, I don't know if they're left-wing or not. I just know that they're not left-wing on this issue. They could be feminists in other ways, but on this issue, they're like a dog with a bone, apparently. And they're going to be putting out more content. In fact, I think I've seen those two faces, if not at least one of those faces in other videos with similar content. They're not letting this go away any more than I'm letting it go away. So you can't say it's a sexist issue because you got the gals involved. You can't say it's a racist issue because, quite frankly, look at me. From the neck down, I look Asian Indian. So it's not a race thing. We look similar, except from like the chin up. But from the chin down, we look the same. If I got my shirt off and I'm at the beach, and you take a picture of me from the chin down, I look Asian Indian. So it's not a race thing. It's a heritage American thing. What's going on is not right. And I'm glad that they're on the team fighting for this issue. If this is your first time watching, please consider hitting the thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. I'll check you out next time. Bye-bye.